We're just on the floor is fine. On the floor.
No.
Hey, what's up, guys? We're live. Here. Move my. Okay. What's up, YouTube? No Instagram today. Still banned from going live on Instagram. I'm too sexy for Instagram. It's been happening a lot recently, so just me and you, YouTube. So today, first of all, welcome everyone. And I'm going to be talking about awakening the sexual center, which is something I'm also going to be going into depth in my masterclass tomorrow, which is called Awakening the Sexual Center, which is all about the pelvic floor. This masterclass I'll be teaching. And my understanding of this has really evolved a lot over the past few years. And really what I'm going to be talking about in this workshop is this masterclass is, again, kind of the anatomy of the pelvic floor, why this is often so strongly linked to premature ejaculation, erection issues, even like painful sex for men, like painful ejaculations, orgasms, pelvic pain, things like that, and what you can do to overcome it, right? So as always, there's going to be a little bit of theoretical information, but a lot of practice. So I'm going to take you guys through an exercise routine that will help to release tension from the pelvic floor. Some really awesome practices for that. Some of my favorite exercises have really helped me release pelvic floor tension, because this is something I really struggled with for a while. And also how to breathe with your pelvic floor, and how you can basically train yourself to overcome strong tensions patterns in your pelvic floors, like during sex, during masturbation, that are causing you to ejaculate quickly. So that's all what we're going to be going into tomorrow in that masterclass. There's a link in the description of this video. There's a link in the chat to sign up for that. But I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a preview here of what we're going to be going into. So again, the pelvic floor is a major part of the sexual center, as I understand it now. The sexual center meaning, obviously our genitals, but really this whole kind of area, we could say this energetic container, this area of our body, which is very much linked to our sexuality, our creativity, our physical processes, procreation, but also, again, this creative energy. And so the pelvic floor directly connects to that, right? And having a balanced pelvic floor is very important in the context of sexuality, because obviously this directly affects your sexual organs, the health of your sexual organs. If your pelvic floor is out of balance, if it's really, really, really weak, but what's more commonly for men who are, not elderly, is for the pelvic floor to be excessively tight and tense, right? And if this is the case, then circulation to your genitals can be lessened. This triggers your nervous system to be in this constant tense state. You're constantly in that fight or flight state, right? All this tension, physical tension and mental tension, being in stress, fight or flight mode is very linked together. And as men, we often hold this tension in our pelvic floor. Notice right now, is your pelvic floor kind of tense? Interesting thing, right? As I started to pay attention to this, I realized that I was basically holding a Kegel all day, squeezing my pelvic floor. And so it's difficult to really progress in sexual kung fu if you have really strong patterns of pelvic floor hypertension. So this is one of the first things we want to address. And in my journey, this is something that I wasn't taught a whole lot about. Obviously, a lot of, people who are teaching this kind of work, male sexual practices, especially Taoist practices and Tantra, there's some mention of the pelvic floor. Mostly they talk about the PC muscle, right? And what they're actually talking about is the BC muscle, which is the perineal muscle. It's between the genitals and the anus. The PC muscle is the muscle around the anus. And so basically the only advice I ever got, was to do Kegels. Squeeze it, make it stronger. And that actually created, my pelvic floor muscles, well, at least my BC muscle got really, really strong, but it also became very, very tight. It became in a constantly contracted pattern. And I realized that this was actually making ejaculation control more difficult for me. After 10 years of doing Kegels every single day, I had a pretty tight pelvic floor because I never trained how to relax it, because no one ever talked about how important it is to actually like stretch out these muscles and balance them, right? Especially in the context of, ejaculation control and having a higher experience of orgasm, full body orgasm, non-ejaculatory orgasm. And so this is something I had to kind of delve into on my own, because again, the people all the teachers I studied sexual kung fu with, they're all amazing, amazing, amazing teachers, but there just wasn't really this information about, a greater, more comprehensive, balanced approach to working with the pelvic floor. The only thing was squeeze it. That's it. Squeeze and relax. Squeeze and release, really. Relaxation wasn't even as, emphasized as it could be, I would say. And so this led me on this journey to learn more about, because what I naturally started experimenting with was I started to realize, oh, when I'm having sex, or when I'm sexually stimulating my penis, if I relax, because I was trained to squeeze, squeeze the muscles, squeeze it, that will block ejaculation. That's what I learned, right? But what I found was that when I constantly squeezed it, it actually put me closer to ejaculation. It made my penis feel more sensitive. Now I was compensating for this by strongly drawing up the energy, which worked, but it was causing, I would say, heightened sensitivity in my penis. And once I experimented with completely relaxing my pelvic floor during sex, during stimulation, I was actually amazed by how significantly easier it was to control ejaculation and even eventually to get into higher orgasmic states. And I was like, okay, why isn't anyone teaching this? Which now I've seen there are, some teachers who stress more the relaxation method, which is great. But even in that approach, there wasn't a more comprehensive training of like, okay, how do you kind of rehabilitate the pelvic floor? If you've been doing Kegels for years and years, you have all these strong tension patterns because you've been sitting in front of your computer, sitting in a chair, stiffly jerking off, and you're squeezing your you're squeezing your pelvic floor during that. I had that pattern as well, masturbating throughout my teenage years. So basically, as men, we often develop this really, really strong tension pattern in the pelvic floor, which can lead to premature ejaculation. And also, it kind of it causes the sexual energy to be stuck in this area because the pelvic floor is meant to, it's almost like, the fascia tissue, the connective tissue. It's a communication system within the body. Chi flows through these tissues. It's almost like the bridge between the chi, the kind of formless energy, and the physical form, right? This fascia network. And when it's distorted, when it has all these tension patterns, it can't really communicate properly. The energy has difficulty flowing, and you experience, tension in your muscles, physical tension. And so by releasing these tension patterns, the sexual energy is able to flow more freely through your body. So it doesn't get stuck in your genitals. I noticed early on in my training, I was experiencing a lot of like blue balls, a lot of like this really tense and like soreness and tension in my pelvic area. And when I stopped squeezing these muscles so much, that went away completely. I no longer had blue balls, no longer had this discomfort after having non-ejaculatory sex. And another point here is one of the most common things that you'll see people teaching is that you want to get close to ejaculation, then squeeze the muscles to prevent ejaculation. And, that can work. But again, it often causes this buildup of tension that can result in pain. Like I experienced this point where after having sex, I had this like pain in my pelvic floor. I thought it was like my prostate or something. I thought something was wrong with me, but it turned out it was just too much tension from squeezing too much, right? And so using the exercises I'm going to share in this masterclass, and I'll share some things with you guys here as well right now. I was able to overcome this, really open up this area, and it really allowed me to go much deeper into states of full body orgasm, non-ejaculatory orgasm, and it made it really effortless to move sexual energy out of the genitals and kind of communicate, allow the sexual center to communicate with the rest of the body, which is really what a big part of sexual kung fu training is not just, the sexual energy, the arousal response is all happening out down here in the genitals. The arousal is stuck in here, then it explodes out in ejaculation. What you want to evolve your practice into is that the sexual center is communicating with the rest of the body, right? And relaxation is important for this. If it's well understood in internal energy training that tension blocks the flow of chi in the body. So it doesn't make any sense if you're trying to move sexual energy out of the genitals. Why would you want to create more tension down there? This is, something I don't really understand now, right? And that's why I found the relaxation approach to be so much more effective. There's no squeezing, tensing, forcing. You allow the energy to move. And when you're completely relaxed, it's easy for the energy to flow. So a lot of talk, but again, this is what I'm going to go way more depth into tomorrow in this masterclass. But I want to share a couple things with you guys to release this pelvic floor tension. So first of all, I talk about this a lot, but the reverse Kegel. But I want to share a cool little breathing practice I think that will help you with this. So notice, let's just feel. Let's just sit and feel. Feel your body. Just close your eyes. Just become aware of your breath. Just feeling your body. Filling all areas of your body. Just really bringing the mind, absorbing it into the body. And now become aware of your pelvic floor and just notice how it feels. Does it feel tight? Does it feel relaxed? Does it feel loose? Just noticing how it feels. And now let's take a breath in. And as you inhale, think of breathing into the pelvic floor. So as you inhale, with belly breathing, you want to expand the belly like a balloon. But now think of the pelvic floor as being part of that balloon. So you breathe and the pelvic floor kind of bulges out as you inhale. And as you exhale, just relax completely. Let out a sigh. And just think of any tension in this area. Just imagine it's just melting, it's just vaporizing out of your body. So again, you inhale, allow the pelvic floor to balloon just by the belly kind of gently pushing out and downward. Exhale and relax. Just do this a few more times. And now, the next time you inhale, let's just add a bit more of an emphasis on this kind of downward. You feel like you're drawing your diaphragm down, ballooning the lower belly to very, very slightly push out. Not so much like a hard reverse Kegel, but just a slight. Think of just kind of pushing your belly down a little bit, and just notice how that bulges the muscles out. And as you do this, feel the pelvic floor, and just think of releasing, dissolving any tension, just stretching, releasing, like it's just melting outward as you inhale. And as you relax, think of dissolving even more tension, it's just melting away. All right. And then one other thing I want to share with this is do this in a just, you can do this in any position. It's great to do lying down. You'll probably feel the most relaxed. Even drawing your feet towards your body so your knees are upright as you lay on your back, that can be supportive for this as well. Also do this in a squatting type of position. So if you Google Malasana, Malasana, it's a yoga pose, right? It's basically this low squat. If you do this deep breathing in that position, it really, really opens up and expands these pelvic floor muscles. And you can also integrate this into your sexual training. So first of all, do this on your own. Start practicing this throughout the day. You can do this anytime, anywhere to start to become aware of the pelvic floor and start to release these tension patterns. This will also put you in a very calm parasympathetic state. And you can experiment with this during self-stimulation or sex. Think of breathing into your pelvic floor and expanding it, and it will help you to overcome that involuntary squeezing response of your pelvic floor, which is one of the main causes of premature ejaculation. And this will help you to hold, you'll actually feel more sexual pleasure breathing in this way. You'll be able to hold a higher charge of arousal without ejaculating and feel much more in control. So there you have it. And this is the awakening of your sexual center because, again, when this area is all tense and blocked, it's difficult to really tap into that energy, right? But when we open it, we activate it, we're able to integrate that energy into the rest of our body. You feel more creative, you feel more relaxed, more fluid, more flowing. And it's great. So again, I'm going to be going way more in depth into this tomorrow in my Awakening the Sexual Center masterclass. There's a link in the description of this video to sign up for that. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be live training. Also, you'll get the recording. If you can't make it live, you can get the recording of it. So it's going to be awesome. So looking forward to seeing you guys there. And now I'm going to go into a little Q&A here. So if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. Oops, I did something here. Okay. King Cell the Max says, hell yeah. Zeke the Geek says, these chats make my day. Glad to hear that, brother. Good to see you on here. Tina says, in addition to Zhan Zhuang, good to see you, Tina, by the way. It's always good to have some feminine energy here on YouTube. She says, in addition to Zhanzhuang and solid intention slash breathing, what 2 to 3 Qigong moves do you suggest to draw energy up from the Dantian to the heart for blockages? Thank you. That's a good question. Drawing energy from Dantian to the heart to blockages. So you've got to be careful from bringing energy from the Dantian to the heart, specifically because when you really focus on building the Dantian, the energy becomes very thick. As you really build the Dantian, you get the kind of alchemical process going of it's kind of this thickening and compressing of the chi. It becomes very thick. It becomes very powerful and tangible. So you have to be careful with the heart area, right? It's sensitive. You don't want to have too much energy in there. So, um, you can simply draw the energy up. Let me get my camera here. So my video just got a little shaky for me. I'm not sure if it is for you guys. So just, this type of movement where you draw the energy up, think of connecting with the Dantian as you kind of, yeah, we'll go into some cool Qigong things here. Okay. First of all, connecting the Lao Gong with the Dantian, you kind of stretch open the fingers a bit, right? Stretch them open and you feel, just a little bit of engagement. You feel like everything kind of stretches open, not like super, super tense, but just this kind of stretching. And so you practice holding your hands in front of the Dantian, feel the Dantian, feel your hands, the palms of your hands, and just kind of move them like this. And you'll start to develop this connection to the Dantian. You'll start to feel it rotate as you build the Dantian. It's something you can practice for a while. And then the hands will be more connected to your energy as you do Qigong, right? This is one of the big parts of Qigong is activating this Lao Gong and turning it into this magnet that pulls the Qi through your body. That's part of the Qigong practice, right? So that's kind of the setup into what I'm going to say next, which is, to bring energy into the heart. Again, just connect, standing in your Qigong stance, sitting, whatever, you kind of engage, activate the hands, connect them to feel the Dantian, feel the hands, feel the palms, and just hold them there for, several breaths, whatever. And then as you inhale, draw the hands up, move your awareness from the Dantian up into the center of the chest, whether that's, the heart center, the physical heart. I wouldn't bring too much in the physical heart, but you just inhale, bring it up. As you exhale, you can kind of push the hands a little closer in and just feel your awareness in the heart and then relax and draw more energy up. That's one way, you can work with the heart. Something else, this is cool. And I would actually prefer this as far as kind of opening up the heart space is, so we're just talking about this connection, the Lao Gong with the Dantian. You can create it with the heart, kind of the heart Dantian space as well. So just bring the hands in front of the heart and bring them a bit closer in. And again, you just feel into that heart space and you stretch the fingers and pull away from the body as you inhale. And as you exhale, you kind of relax the fingers, pull them back in. Inhale, stretch the fingers gently, feel the heart space and just open. And as you do this after a while, first of all, the foundation is creating this connection of the Lao Gong point with the energy body, we could say. But if you do this movement over and over, you'll start to open up this heart field and expand it. You'll start to feel this lightness. It's really nice. So there was a, little Qigong training there, but work with that. It's really great practice. Secret of Truth says, you're a top guy. Hope you are well and blessings envelope you. Thank you. I appreciate that. The Wandering Soul says, can you elaborate a bit more on Jing and Qi? Also, do your trainings address the balance between the Yin Qi, Jing, and Yang Qi, Jing balance? Excuse me. So as far as Jing and Qi, I mean, these are just different vibrations of energy. The Jing is the more dense. So again, Jing, Qi, Shen, these are just, again, different forms of the same thing. The life force is, everything's made of one life force, but it takes many different expressions, many different forms. And Jing, Qi, Shen is one of the first thing it divides into, right? And the metaphor here is water, how water takes different forms, right? When it slows in vibration enough, it freezes into ice. That's like a physical structure. And then it's at the next level, and the ice melts and it's water, which is liquid, and it's still physical, but it's a little more formless, right? It's hard to really contain. And then when it increases its vibration even more, it turns into a vapor, which you can't really grab, right? It's even more formless. So this is kind of Jing, Qi, Shen, a crude metaphor for it, right? The different forms. And Jing is the most dense form of energy before it further steps down and crystallizes into physical form. So Jing is kind of physical essence is something that's often translated as. Whereas chi is more of an intermediary. It's more what we think of when we talk about, internal energy. Is we think of this fluid chi energy, which is it's not so thick. Jing's very thick. It's very tangible. When it's moving through your body, it feels very, very tangible. It's like this thick, viscous thing moving through your body, or like when it's moving through your microcosmic orbit, it feels like this bubble moving through. It's very interesting. Excuse me. And so, um, yeah, Jing and Qi. We could say the thick physical essence, and then the Qi is kind of an intermediary between these different forms, right? It's very much in line with like our emotional energy, just the regular Qi flowing through the acupuncture meridians of the body, whereas Jing only flows through the 8 extraordinary meridians of the body. So they say. How do you really scientifically qualify these things, right? So we just, I can only give my own kind of experiences on this, but as far as the practice addressing the yin qi and jing, and yin qi, yin blah, yin and yang qi, yin and yang jing, I would say it addresses it. I just don't, theorize on it too much. Um, in that, for example, building the Dantian, you need both the yin and the yang, right? Because the yin is the container. It's basically yin. As we'll talk about chi anyway. Yin chi is more like a spherical. It's fields. It's like forms. It's like magnetic fields, right? So it has a spherical quality to it. Whereas yang chi is more like this electricity that moves. You know, Sometimes it's more of an angular, straight movement, right? It's more of like a movement, right? Whereas the yin chi is more of a form. It's simply a state. It's like a magnetic field, right? And we need both. For example, for the Dantian, in that to build the Dantian, you need to first create the yin magnetic field, which you do with stillness practice. You hold your mind in the Dantian area and you create a connection between the Qi high point and the Hu Yin point. These 2 points start to activate and kind of communicate. It starts to pull Qi and Jing into the Dantian and forms this yin Qi container, this magnetic field, which is like the bucket, the container that you start to fill with the yang Qi. And you fill it with yang Qi by, again, holding your awareness there. There's various practices as well where you pull what we were just doing, connecting the hands to the Dantian, that will pull yang Qi into the Dantian and will start to fill with that. So you mobilize the yang Qi to open the meridians of the body, whereas the yin Qi is more, it's creating like containers and forms to hold the yang Qi, we could say, right? So yeah, my practice address this. It's something that more happens spontaneously with your training versus like, I theoretically talk about it a lot, basically. Gonna be talking about talking a lot about qigong here, which is great. I can talk about it all day. I'm a chi nerd. B says, "What are your favorite qigong moves that you do every day? And do you keep your eyes open or closed? Any advice to make my qigong practice longer?" Okay. As far as qigong moves, there's a lot, and I do have some that I like, practice the most, maybe, or that are my current favorites or whatever. But I will say, first of all, that it's not that any specific movement is better than any other one. It's all about the foundations, and the foundation of qigong is Zhuang standing, holding the postures, because it teaches you how to properly hold your body. Because qigong it's not 100% energetic practice. It's not 100% a physical practice. This is my take on it right now, right? Maybe with the things I share always changing a little bit, but right now I understand that qigong is it's there's a bit of physicality and there's a bit of energeticness as well. For example, something we could say is 100% energetic is like you're just sitting there, maybe you're imagining things, you're just kind of guiding things with your mind, and it's happening, or maybe it's not happening. You just imagine it's happening, right? There's a lot of that, right? But qigong is like you have to have certain physical conditions. You create certain alignments in your body. You have to be able to relax and sync your qi. This is what Zhuang trains you to do, is to get into sung, this state of releasing the tension that's not necessary beyond what is required to hold the physical shape. And so that's kind of the foundation of qigong, a lot of that, and being able to absorb your mind into your body. And I think that that's the important starting point for qigong, is the Zhuang training, because that builds qi very powerfully in your body by holding the postures over a duration of time. You start to build the dantian, you start to open channels, and again, it teaches you how to connect the whole body as a unit. so that you're not just kind of waving there's a lot of Qigong that's just kind of, we could say it's physical therapy, your slow motion movements, it's relaxing, your breathing, coordination with it. It's nice, right? And yes, it does move some chi, but it's much more powerful if you have certain foundations in place, which the Zhanzhuang is. So you sync the chi. You're in this state of relaxation of sung, and your mind is engaged within the body as you do these movements. So it's like a whole body practice. And the chi, you sink your energy into the earth, you physically relax and sink, and the earth chi, your chi sinks into the earth, and then it springs back up, and the earth chi comes with it, fills up your legs, fills up your dantian, fills up your torso, your head, your arms. The hands are the last point. So when your hands light up, it's gone through the whole body. So having said that, my favorite Qigong movements, there's one that I've been doing a lot of recently, which is called Marriage of Heaven and Earth. It's one that both Michael Wynn, I learned from Michael Wynn originally. Bruce Francis also teaches it as like a standalone Qigong practice. It's really, really fantastic. It's actually quite a complex form. It's just one, it's two movements, but it's actually quite complex. That's something I've been doing a lot. But I mean, you check out my Qigong playlist, and a lot of my favorite ones are on there. Just you sink, release, raise the arms up, they come down. It looks like this, like it looks like you're just doing this, but you're actually doing much, much more than that. And that movement is good training for what I'm talking about here. Releasing internally, kind of mobilizing the chi, the dantian, to create this energetic movement, which is also, this kind of physical movement, right? And it'll light you up. I also do a lot of Tai Chi. I love Tai Chi. I do that every day. But anyways, moving on here. Do you keep your eyes open or closed? It depends. It's a little different every day. I do a bit of both, honestly. Usually when I'm doing movements, I keep my eyes open. Whereas in my Zhanzhuang, it's often like 50-50 between some days I'll keep my eyes open, sometimes they're closed. I like, if I'm in like out in a park practicing, which I do in the warmer months, I like to keep my eyes open. Just, you're aware of the beautiful scenery and you start to feel connected to it, but it's like you use peripheral vision. So you don't feel like you're gazing out to the world. You just have your eyes open, but you're not overly, focused on what's coming into your eyes. It's just kind of part of the practice, right? So it's like you start to merge this outer world and inner world. So, but it's kind of said in a lot of the classics that if you're more focused on like healing, you want to keep your eyes closed during practice. So if you have a weakness, a disease, whatever you're really trying to heal, you want to keep your eyes closed to help preserve energy internally. Whereas the more martial training, which is like excess chi, not excess, but just like you're building tons of chi to mobilize and kind of connect out with the external world, you might want to keep your eyes open, but it's whatever. It doesn't really matter, I think. And as far as making your Qigong practice longer, I mean, just add more time, basically, when you're ready to, you don't want to start with an hour. You want to start with whatever you're comfortable with, right? Like if your legs are hurting, if you're not used to standing in the position for long periods of time, it starts to change your body, right? So you have to adjust to it just like anything else, and just, add a few minutes every day. And that's really all it is. Okay. Derek Trevino. What's up, Derek? He says, doesn't pelvic floor slash mula bandha contraction have its place, such as helping in building chi? From my understanding, the lock helps keep chi and energy from being released out of the body. Fair point. And, it's a good question. This is, again, I was taught this too. Like if you don't, if you don't squeeze your pelvic floor, all your chi is just going to fall out. I think there's a grain of truth to this, right? I think that primarily this mula bandha, this squeeze the pelvic floor as it's taught in a lot of practice. I have this theory that it's a bit of a misinterpretation of some of the ancient principles because as I was studying a certain system of Neidan, Taoist internal alchemy, there's a lot of these very, very, very subtle physical engagements that have a great physical effect. For example, reverse breathing, which is something that's commonly taught in a lot of schools. A lot of teachers will tell you, squeeze the abs and just really pull the belly in, like that's reverse breathing, right? But that's very, very physical. I learned this version of reverse breathing where basically you just very, very gently pull in chi high. So like right now, I'm doing reverse breathing, but it's not really physically outwardly obvious, right? So I think this is what happened with a lot of practices is that as they're thousands of years old and they have these oral tradition teacher to teacher. It's like the game we played in school where like you get in a circle and someone hears a message and they tell the person next to them, they tell the person next to them. And by the time the message goes around the whole circle, it's not the same thing. And I think that's kind of similar thing that happens in the internal arts is like some of these things become overly physicalized. I think that the Mula Bandha contraction is maybe one of these things because there's a way of engaging it without contracting, which is it's hard to explain, um, but it's like this internal sucking that for me kind of comes from the Dantian energy. It's like this very subtle pull up. I think that's more what they were talking about with Mula Bandha and that type of thing, right? So I don't think it was originally this just squeeze the pelvic floor. And I will say that since I have completely stopped doing Kegel exercises, I have not experienced any leaking of my sexual energy or vital energy out this point. And here's the whole thing, right? Well, here's another thing. I've shared a lot of things, I guess, but your pelvic floor. The first part of your question, do they have its place? I think they have its place if you have a super, super weak pelvic floor. But if you do any moderate form of exercise, if you do squats, if you walk around a lot, if you do Qigong, your pelvic floor is usually quite strong enough, right? I think the only time and place someone should do Kegel type exercises if they have very, very weak pelvic floors. Like you can't hold in urine, you know what I mean? That level of weakness. So I think the engagement of the perineum is a bit more subtle than a physical contraction. I think it's more of a mental engagement. And as you do certain types of more subtle breath work, we could say there is this slight suction of that perineum that happens, but it's not from squeezing it. It's different. So I think a lot of this is a misinterpretation as things have been overly physicalized. So a lot of long-winded answers, I guess, today. But hey, it's all right. Nick Sebeg says, "Hey man, any qigong exercise for someone?" I'm not sure if there's more to that. Sometimes people's comments get cut off and incomplete. So if you had a specific thing for qigong practice, feel free to type that in the box. But if you're just looking for qigong, check out my qigong playlist. I have a whole playlist on qigong practices. All right, smoothie break. Where are we at? Here's something that you guys can play with on this topic of Mula Bandha excessive tension. Imagine instead of physically squeezing it, imagine you're squeezing it. And you may even notice there's a very slight, almost beginning of a contraction in that area, but not really, right? If you start applying that to whatever it is you were using, the squeezing, what you called Mula Bandha before, use that instead. Just notice what happens. I noticed that the energetic effect becomes almost stronger in a way, and there's no physical tension, right? The Wandering Soul says, "Thank you for addressing my queries in depth. One problem I'm having is when I do a lot of spiritual practices, especially yoga, my vital energy evaporates or drains fast. How do I keep the circulation going?" This could be very, very, a variety of things, but it could be an issue of grounding. What type of yoga are you doing? A lot of yoga is very physical. It's very, it's a workout basically, right? You're stretching your muscles, you're holding postures and things like that, and it's physically taxing because it's a physical exercise. It's stretching, and there's some energetic effect to it. It can help to open the meridians and things like that. But this is what really drew me to qigong, is that uh, I was doing a lot of yoga. I got really, really into yoga, and then I got into Kundalini yoga, and I liked Kundalini yoga because it was getting me really high, but it was like the high burned up fast and like it burned up my energy fast. I would just feel like spaced out and kind of like tired and a little delusional, right? And when I started practicing qigong, that taught me how to ground my energy, because yoga is all about this fire path, the central channel, the sushumna, open it up. It's like just bring your energy up, open the crown, blast it off into space. That's kind of the goal of a lot of yoga systems, right? What does that do to your physical body? You're depleting your physical essence. You're just shooting all your energy out of your physical body. We need this physical vessel for our time here on the planet, right? I don't want to escape out of my body. I want to bring more of my original self into my body and be more embodied here and now instead of trying to escape, right? And this is what I really liked about qigong systems is that it's a little more I would say it's a little more energetically sophisticated in some way. You work with the whole meridian system, especially you start with the lower centers. You start with the Dantin, the legs, opening up the legs, the leg channels, connecting to earth chi. This is very grounding, very supportive. So that when you do, whether it's, more intense like spiritual types of practice or you're, whatever, you have a greater container to hold that energy so it doesn't disperse. This is the big thing is if you don't have a container to hold and digest the energies that you're kind of calling out in your practices, which is, grounding, then you're not going to be able to hold it. It's going to slip away from you, you know, and you're left with nothing. You feel tired, you feel drained. So I don't know. Hopefully that's helpful. Tina says, thank you for the practice suggestions and details. Much appreciated. Awesome. Hope that is, have fun with those. Zeke the Geek says, would love to hear insight into inguinal hernia and how Qigong can help. I'm not super well versed on this, to be honest. Hernias, I know it's something that can potentially be, addressed naturally through different practices, lifestyle changes, and things like that. I remember hearing something about this recently, but it slips my mind right now. So the best I can say right now is do research. Do research into natural ways to work with hernias and things like that. And I'm sure you'll with a bit of research find something good. Sorry, I can't be more helpful there. Fulbert Elric says, "Does qigong improve focus?" Well, the training that you do to practice qigong will develop your focus because to do qigong, you have to do it properly. You have to be focused. But at the same time, you can be like, okay, I'm waving my arms around, do. I'm thinking about my grocery list. I'm thinking about the news. Uh-oh, what am I going to do tomorrow? So it's something you have to cultivate, right? But qigong is uh, a good way to cultivate focus. That's why I like the Zhuang practice. Well, one of the reasons I like it. There's many, many reasons. Which I have I have a video of this practice on my YouTube channel. So look up standing meditation, basically. Because what you do is you hold these postures and you bend your knees, so it puts a little stress on your body. You stand here for long. I'm standing in this position for 30 minutes at a time every day. That's my morning practice. Pretty soon, gravity starts to talk to you. Pretty soon, you're like, oh, there's some tension here. Oh, my legs are burning because they're supporting my body, but I'm relaxing at the same time. So you can't help but have your mind pulled into your body. You have to learn like, okay, how can I relax this tension to hold my arms up so my shoulders aren't screaming at me? So it really pulls your focus into your body. So basically, yes, practicing Qigong properly can definitely improve focus. That's one of the greatest things I learned from my Qigong and meditation practice was to really, really, really increase my focus into doing one thing at a time, fully absorbing my awareness into it, right? Which is kind of the opposite of what, we're taught to do out in the world with technology and everything. It's like I've got 20 browsers on my internet, pulled up. I've got a million social media posts I'm scrolling through. It just scatters our energy. So yeah, any practice to pull it back in, center your mind, your focus. Your focus is like a laser, or it's like light. When it's scattered, it's diffused. But when you can focus it in one place, it's got that laser-like power. You can do a lot with it. Rendell Frank, what's up, Rendell? Says how to get rid of involuntary contraction and tension of muscles during sex that happens. This is something I'm going to be covering in depth in the training tomorrow, but basically, you want to, first of all, be doing a lot of pelvic floor work to release because often there's some underlying tension in that area. But basically, what I recommend is you practice self-stimulation, and as soon as you start having that involuntary contraction, stop, breathe, relax your pelvic floor, and do less intense stimulation and slowly build your way up to, base to where noticing where that point is, where you start tensing and staying away from it for as long as you can while focusing on breathing deeply, focusing on relaxing. Different positions can help as well. Being in kind of a horse stance, like where you're standing up, can really help with that as well. laying on your back, just focus on relax completely. And also, you'll notice that I've said this many times, but there's an area of the penis. So, okay, this is my penis, right? Well, this, it's a little bigger, I swear, but so this finger's a penis, right? Uh, this would be the frenulum area, right? This is the area that really uh, creates that tension response. There's these nerves that connect this area to the nerves around the prostate, and so when this is being stimulated, it creates a signal to cause these contractions. So when you can avoid stimulating this area a bit more, uh, avoid stimulating this area, you will have less of that. So you can adjust sexual positions based on this. Just when you're stimulating yourself, you're completely in control. So just don't use the old fist grip. Change up the stimulation and things like that. But basically, sl- s- stimulate yourself slower, focus on relaxation and relaxation your whole body. Notice how you want to squeeze like your thighs, your feet, tense up the chest, and when you relax your whole body, it's easier to release the tension in the pelvic floor. And this, I think, Caitlin Gilpatrick says how to deal with hypersensitivity, which I'm guessing is kind of a similar thing. I'm not sure hypersensitivity, if you're talking about in regards to pelvic floor. If so, then yes, exactly what I'm talking about is releasing the underlying tension patterns in the pelvic floor through the stretching exercises, the breathing into the pelvic floor, reverse Kegels, stretching out the pelvic floor. Carlos in the crypto space says, gonna run into an old girlfriend in a few weeks. What should I focus on? As far as what? Like, what's your goal? What, what should you focus on in your life? What should you focus on during sex? Um, I'm not exactly sure in what context you're talking about focusing in. If you're talking about during sex, then you want to focus on relaxing, keeping your pelvic floor relaxed, breathing deeply. I mean, take my ejaculation control course. It's in, there's a link in all my videos, and you'll have the practices that what you should be doing during sex that I go over in that course. But breathing is the number one thing to focus on. Deep belly breathing, deep relaxed breathing. That will keep your nervous system calm and balanced. Ghetto spiritualitat says, and did you reach this skill? I'm not sure what I was talking about when you commented that, so my apologies there. Which skill? All right. Ihan says, hi, Johnathan. I have a very low energy. After 2 hours, I wake up. I want to sleep again. Do you suggest something for this? So depletion, a very likely adrenals, kidney energy. Kidney energy in Chinese medicine is the kidneys are the batteries of the body. And when your kidney energy is low, you're going to feel fatigued, exhausted. And it's hard to get out of bed in the morning. You want to sleep all the time. So kidney deficiency, very likely, kidney yin specifically, extremely common. Most people in this world have some sort of kidney deficiency in some level. But yeah, when it gets really extreme, you can have these kind of like really strong, kind of like chronic exhaustion. So you want to focus on rebuilding the kidneys. How do you do that? Number one, remove stress from your life as much as you can. Remove, overworking. If you're working 80 hours a week, your mind's running all over the place. To-do lists. It's draining your energy. You're just throwing away your energy all over the place. So try to make some lifestyle changes. Right. Make sure you're eating healthy. You're not eating processed foods and fast foods and things like that. Not a bunch of junk. Nourish your body with real foods, real nutrition. Exercise is important, at least get outside and walk every day, spend time in nature, breathe in fresh air from the trees, the forests, get out to a park, at least get out in nature as much as you can, once a day. And again, exercise, getting your blood moving is very, very important for your hormonal balance. Qigong specifically is really, really effective for building up the kidneys, for resupporting that kind of depletion. So I recommend going through my Qigong playlist, picking one of the practices you like and do that every day. You may also want to see a naturopath, an acupuncturist, someone who's really skilled in working with you to kind of speed up the process as well. Also, again, building the kidneys, there's a lot of Chinese herbal formulas that support building up the kidneys. One I like is the Shou Wu formulation, SHOWU. Dragon Herbs has one formula of this that I like. So hope that's helpful. Moonbase Monk Mode says, can you speak more about the times of day affecting practice? Example, I can't really feel my Dantian around noon, so I work with testicle and the back channel instead. Night or 6 a.m., I can charge up Dantian more. Yeah, so for me personally, I mean, there's kind of the thing, kind of the common, you know, Qigong systems talk about different times of day being better for different types of practices. For me personally, I noticed that I feel my chi just in general more strongly. I feel my dantian more. I feel my channels more. I feel just the whole body energy flow better in the afternoon and evening. So I'm not sure why it is. Just noticed that. But as my practice has developed now more and more, it's easy for me to get just as charged up in the morning as well. It's different every day, but so I can't really say why it is other but you'll find what practices, like it sounds like you're already finding the practices that are easier for you to do or easier to feel at these times of day, and that's what you're doing, right? And so for me it's similar. I kind of do my core practice in the morning. I do my Zhan Zhuang, just charge up with energy. I do certain sitting practices in the morning, and then in the evening I do more, do my Tai Chi, do my Xing Yi Chuan, different Qigong forms that really like light me up and just blast off with crazy feelings of energy as well. So yeah. All right, Ahan, wishing you the best. Yeah, got to take care of yourself. Moonbase says, have you noticed change in sexual desire as the seasons change? Definitely. For me, I mean, overall, like I noticed there was a few years ago where during the winter, okay, well, first of all, kind of the general rule is that in the warmer months, you have more sexual energy, right? So you can be, a little less strict that we could say, if you really want to, you can ejaculate more in the spring and the summer. Whereas in the colder months, the energy is sinking back into the earth, autumn, winter. So you want to really, especially the winter, you want to really guard your kidney energy, which is your sexual energy. And so you don't want to, you want to minimize ejaculations during the winter. And I've definitely noticed this personally. Like as soon as spring's, we're in spring right now. We're in spring energy, and I'm feeling it. My sexual energy is definitely heightened, and that for me continues well through the summer and into winter. And but I was gonna say a few years ago, I noticed there was one winter where um, I realized, wow, my sexual vitality is really low. I'm my erections aren't as strong. I just don't feel as horny, and this really led me into uh, learning how to build up the kidney energy, like what herbs I should be taking in this time, lifestyle changes. And what I noticed the past 2 winters is that my sexual energy was much, much higher than it had been in the past, which is a good sign of maintaining my kidney energy, healthy testosterone, things like that. So yeah, definitely there's a difference in the seasons as far as sexual energy. So again, you can ejaculate more in the summer and spring if you want, but be really guard that energy in the winter. Chosen One says, on a night streak, I find myself taking lots of power naps, but sleeping less at night. Is this common amongst retainers? Feels amazing, but I hope I'm not missing out on REM sleep and its benefits. I don't know. I'm not really a napper myself, so I can't say much about this. Again, one of the downsides to napping a lot is, yeah, it does it can affect your melatonin and your circadian rhythm, and you don't get as much quality sleep as at night, and so you will feel tired throughout the day, and that's you'll have to nap constantly. So there's many factors to sleep and energy levels other than semen retention itself, but maybe relation here as well. Phase Clan says, "Amen, brother. Also noticing my libido going ham lately." Yeah, so spring especially is the time of rising sexual energy. I was kind of talking about this last week, I think, of how this is really the time to manage and channel that energy into what you want to. Spring is all about um the chi is rising. It's about beginning new projects. The sap is rising up in the trees, and they're starting to put out their buds to create leaves and everything. So it's this time of rising energy. So it's this, we have this abundance of sexual energies. The earth chi is really rising up through us. So that's this is well understood in esoteric circles as well. That's why Easter, which is released, related to these old pagan kind of fertility ceremonies that happen this time of year, because resurrection, this time of after the dead of winter, all these plants are coming back up. The world is reawakening. It feels like it's like a rebirth, and so we feel that within ourselves as well, and this heightened juicy sexual energy. So it's a good time to practice sexual kung fu, to channel that energy into creative things, creative outlets, and enjoy it as well. Share it with your loved ones. Derek Trevino says, how often do you practice transformational breath work? It varies. For many, many years, I did it. So this is the practice from the Multi-Orgasmic Man course. It's phenomenal. This practice is better than any drugs. Everyone who's done it loves it. But recently, I haven't been doing it as often. I should probably be doing it more, just because I'm doing other practices. But um, for for the most part, I would do it at least once a week, or about once a week, and I would do like a really long session, ideally once a month. For a while, I was doing this. I haven't been doing this recently, but hoping to get back into that specific practice. By longer session, I mean, like, for me, it's about an hour and 20 minutes, whereas a shorter session would be about 20 minutes of transformational breath work. So yeah, it's a phenomenal practice. It's very fiery. It's very, just blasts energy through your body, clears things out very intensely. That's why I have it within one of the first weeks of the course, is that it's kind of an initiation, really activates. But it is a very fiery, kind of more young practice. So it's not something you want to do every day, at least not for super long periods. All right, again, guys, I am teaching my Awakening the Sexual Center masterclass tomorrow. It's going to be really awesome. All about pelvic floor, balancing, overcoming hypertension patterns to help you last longer during sex, have more orgasmic pleasure, and be able to more effortlessly move this energy through your whole body, connect the sexual energy through your whole body. So that's tomorrow. There's a link in the description, link in the chat up at the top. And if there's no more questions, I'm going to finish this off. This is kind of rare that I'm able to get through everything. Chosen One says, sometimes I feel like keeping semen retention a secret amongst men in my circles so I can have an edge up on them and garner more female attraction. I feel bad at the same time because it will help them. Thoughts? Well, this is kind of it's kind of coming from your ego. This is like, only I should have this so I can be better than everyone else. Instead of, if I share this with the world, it will help the collective. So I don't know. It's kind of a shadow issue. This is something that can happen with semen retention as well, that you want to look out for. Is it strengthens the ego, because sexual energy amplifies everything. And if you're not working to kind of improve your qualities, your emotional qualities, your spiritual qualities at the same time, then this energy can kind of drive you on a weird path. So that's why semen retention I don't recommend semen retention as a standalone thing. Like, I'm just going to retain my semen, that's it. Ideally, I only recommend doing semen retention if you have a foundation of self-cultivation practices, emotional clearing, spiritual clearing, right? So that you're developing virtuous qualities and feeding those with your sexual energy, because otherwise you tend to strengthen your unconscious patterns, your ego patterns, and kind of turn into a Darth Vader type figure. I've seen this a lot, and be careful with it. I would say. I mean, this is kind of the pattern of the past several thousand years, is secrets being held amongst a few elite people, and everyone else is missing out on information that would really benefit everyone. And that's why I'm sharing this information openly, is because this is the only well, this is one of the hopes for humanity, is to overcome this trauma and shame we have around sexuality and turn that into a healing potential. This energy has the power to liberate us, to heal us, to balance us if we know how to work with it consciously. Jay Green says, trying to level up, can you do Kegels the wrong way? Definitely. I personally, I talked about this earlier, but I don't do Kegels at all anymore. They made my pelvic floor way too tense, way too tight to where I couldn't relax it. And so Kegels aren't for everyone. If you're doing Kegels, you should also be doing counter exercises to relax the pelvic floor and stretch it out, like reverse Kegels, right? For most men, they have too much tension in their pelvic floor. So doing Kegels just makes that tension stronger and makes premature ejaculation worse. Royal Calvin says, will sexual transmutation cure my ADD and fatigue, laziness? I mean, it depends. Depends where it's coming from, right? If you have ADD because you're sitting on a screen all day, splitting your attention between different things. I mean, anyone who spends all day on a phone or electronic device has some sort of ADD. It's just inevitable when you split your attention that much through these different tasks, being overstimulated by this electronic machines, these slot machines that we're all on all day, that we're getting dopamine hit after dopamine hit. So if that's what's causing it, then sexual transmutation's only going to do so much for this. But if it's more like, I will say that bringing the sexual energy up to the brain can be very nourishing, and I found that it really helped me enhance my clarity of thought, my focus, creative ideas. So for me, it really helped having ADD type things personally. But again, there's a lot of other factors here. Mental training in general is important for this. If you want to change your habits, if you want to develop better concentration, better skills, you want to start looking at your lifestyle. Like, why is this an issue in the first place? Is my diet poor? Am I not getting enough nutrition? Do I have the right diet, wrong diet type for my body? My brain's not getting fed, so I have trouble focusing. Again, is it I'm spending too much time on a computer, on a device? It's splitting my attention. I don't spend any time like focusing on one thing in depth. There's a lot of things here, but in general, yes, the practice of sexual kung fu deeply develops your discipline, your willpower, and your ability to focus on one thing. Seeker says, is holotropic / Wim Hof breathing best done before or after Qigong? Have you experienced or heard about Qi deviation? Okay, two questions here. So first of all, the type of breathing before or after Qigong, it doesn't really matter. It depends. It can be kind of a nice way to like wake yourself up in the morning, because you want to warm up a bit before you do Qigong, to at least like open up the joints, get things flowing. And sometimes doing some breath work can really help you to kind of bring your focus, your attention here into the here and now, so you're more embodied before you get into your training. So, doesn't really matter either way. But as far as Qi deviation, yes, I'm familiar with Qi deviation. Have I experienced it? I mean, Qi deviations, it's kind of a fancy word to that I think has been used. So there's some teachers who kind of use it as like a, Qi deviation. If you follow other systems, you're going to get Qi deviation. Better follow my system. There's a lot of kind of fear mongering around it in some teachers, and it's actually incredibly rare to have a real, legit, like serious problem with Qi deviation. I've experienced, excess yang, too much energy up my head, driving too much energy up my spine into my brain. When I was doing Kundalini yoga, I experienced some, Kundalini psychosis type stuff. Maybe you could say that was a form of Qi deviation. So yeah. But in general, if you have a balanced practice, it's not going to be an issue. Royal Calvin says, I drink lots of soda, and yeah, my phone is an issue. So, those are some things, right? Soda, sugars, or if it's, the diet sodas, the aspartame, the poison marketed as sweetener. Yeah, those things are the sugar. It affects your blood level, your blood. Let me calm down here. Blood sugar spikes and lowering. It's terrible for your concentration. It's like, kids, you see people giving their kids like candy bars and sodas. And it's like, well, why do they're like, why are you so hyper? You need to calm down. It's like, well, you're giving them sugar, and it's just wreaking havoc on their, their blood sugar and things like that. So something to look into. Phones are the great distraction devices, the great mind control devices, we could say, of our time, Jay Green says, that's 1000% what happened to me with the Kegels. I had to work my way backwards to get back. It took me like 7 to 8 months. So yeah, this is why I'm so adamant about, sharing. And this is exactly what I'm sharing in the pelvic floor class tomorrow. The Awakening the Sexual Center class is how to rehabilitate your pelvic floor if you do suffer from pelvic floor tension, which is something that pretty much all men right now, I think, will benefit from. Which is another thing. It's like pretty much all male sexual health, you know, teachers, influencers, whatever, are saying that the go-to practice for male sexual health is Kegels, when in fact, for most men, this is actually going to cause issues for them. It's an overly isolating practice. It's kind of the equivalent of like, okay, you want to train your arm, just do bicep curls. Yep, maybe some tricep curls too, but you don't train your shoulder, you don't train your chest. It's like you're gonna have some serious imbalances, basically, right? This is what happens with your pelvic floor. Is you train a small group of muscles. The pelvic floor is more than just those muscles you squeeze when you urinate, and it causes imbalances. You can't relax them. The whole system can't communicate properly. It wreaks havoc. So can be overcome. Moonbase says, about your video on the best sexual kung fu books, what exactly was outdated about some of the practices? I'm reading Taoist Secrets of Love right now. So as far as like the Montauk Chia books, I think those are the ones I kind of mentioned that with. The pelvic floor tension, they say, like multi-orgasmic man says to do PC pull-ups, which is they're often actually talking about the BC muscle, the muscle that holds back urine, right? Um, they say to squeeze this muscle, really, really hard, hold it strong as you can. That's when I started doing Kegels, almost 10 years ago. And all it did was create excessive tension in my pelvic floor. So the squeezing the pelvic floor, leave that out. And the big draw method, which, I actually have a video of that on my channel, that original method of the big draw. I posted it like almost 5 years ago when I created this channel, because I was still using it at the time. But since then I've realized it's a pretty crude and overly forceful method where you squeeze everything and shove the sexual energy up into your head. That method gives me a headache. Like it's just way too forceful, just shoves the energy up into your head. And so there's a better way to do it, basically. Yeah, I think that's about it. Also well, I don't know. I have mixed feelings about the scrotal compression from Tao Secrets of Love. I can see getting some benefit from it, but it can also be like shoving energy into your genitals. Shoving more energy down there isn't necessarily a good idea. So there we go. Liam says, when I watch porn and engage with that lifestyle, there's a dramatic and negative effect on my energy and ability to socialize and be open with people. Can you talk about that? Yeah, this is a common thing. First of all, when you're jerking off to porn every day, you're ejaculating to porn, you're depleting your life force, you're depleting your essence. You're doing that every day, day after day after day after day. You're just, you're ripping out your core energy, and so you're going to feel depleted. When you feel depleted, you don't feel very confident in a social setting. You just feel kind of like shrunken with your energy, and so there's that. And also it creates this really weird, you're sitting here watching random other people having sex, and you're like sending energy to that. You're gluing yourself to that situation astrally. You're connecting with some weird energy there, and it's just a strange situation, right? It's not really a natural uh, context to experience sexuality. So it causes all kinds of dysfunctions in our ability to relate to the opposite sex and how we, emotionally connect with people. It causes many, many distortions. I think porn is one of the greatest weapons being used on mankind right now. Why do you think it's free? Even water isn't free. It's interesting. Okay, Nick Sebig, I your question must not be posting in the chat properly. Maybe try closing out your browser, rejoining. Sometimes comments don't show up here. I'm not sure why. So I'm not skipping question. It just hasn't shown up for me. I apologize for that. It's one of the weird things that happens on YouTube. Secret says, "Are you running a new training course soon?" Well, I've got the masterclass tomorrow, which is going to be really cool. I also have another new course that I'll be talking more about it soon. I'm not going to share too much about it now, but I do have another course coming out soon, which I'm pretty excited about. Oh, spine adjustment. Holy Man's 462 says, is there a connection between PMO and junk food? So PMO is something that in the NoFap community, I think it means porn, masturbation, orgasm. So it's basically jerking off to porn. So there's a connection between porn addiction and junk food. Often, definitely, it's because it's an addictive behavior. Porn addiction is actually one of the hardest addictions to break because it affects you like an opiate. It really does. It completely messes with your arousal response. You basically start to require porn to feel normal. You require porn to have a normal level of arousal because when you're with a real life woman, it's not as intense and stimulating as the weird, porn you've been watching. It it messes you up big time, right? Um, and so you're going to seek other kind of like quick fix. That's what porn is you click a button, you get instant gratification, you get hooked on that. So you're going to seek other things that are instant gratification, one of which is junk food. Like, oh, it tastes good for 5 seconds, but I feel like garbage for, the rest of the day. So, turn to drugs, scrolling through social media for hours, video games. Yes, these things are all related. So you start to cut these addictive behaviors out of your life. And yeah, there's a, a withdrawal period, but then you feel a human again. You're no longer this zombie staring off, jerking off into a screen. It's like, I just imagine, like on another planet, extraterrestrials, like, like having like classes about the habits of other species. Like, oh, humans, this is their sex habits now. This is their sex habit. They sit in front of this computer and they jerk off into a screen and, I don't know. Thanks, Zeke the Geek. Glad you are getting some beneficial from this. Moonbase says, I mean, here's the thing is I'm not a master, I'm not a guru. I just have, a strong interest in things and I pursue, when I want to know something, when I want to develop a skill in something, I pursue it relentlessly and find out everything I possibly can. There's a lot of people who are just like, like, okay, I'm going to take one little training on this and now I know everything there is because this teacher, I always just had more questions. It's like I could have, stopped for my first initial training in, what I've been teaching would have evolved in the past 5, 6, 7 years, however long, right? But I'm consistently asking more questions, digging deeper, doing more research, doing more experiments on myself and my body. This is how things evolve and develop. If you just say, okay, I read this in a book, this is how it is. This is all it'll ever be. I'm just going to repeat this. Things don't grow. Things don't develop. So it's like, I don't know. I want to keep the practices alive, keep them relevant and really understand like what's truth and what's just words in a book, because it's easy to get on that path. Moonbase says, how long did it take you to complete the microcosmic orbit? Well, I was born with it completed and it's been complete. Here's the thing is I think I understand what you're asking. Um, uh, the microcosmic orbit's always there. It's running in your body right now. If it wasn't, you would be dead. It's what's bringing the energy through your entire system. It's the prime meridian, which is that energy is crystallizing, creating your physical body. So without it, you'd be dead. But the thing is through our lifetime, the flow becomes a bit constricted, right? In certain areas, we develop a bit of blockages. The energy starts to flow in kind of erratic patterns. So that's what we're kind of, what we're really doing. When we say opening the microcosmic orbit, what we're really saying is balancing it and increasing the flow to how it was maybe when we were born, when we were young, right, or even beyond that, which is what opening the channels truly is opening them to an even higher potential than we were born with. That's some really big work, right? But having said that, again, just moving your mind through the orbit is going to work with the energy of it. So completing it, I mean, is it ever really complete? It's always open to some extent, but it can be open more. I will say that I started tangibly feeling it, within several few weeks of practicing it. But it was when I um, really started working with the Dantin, really building some yang qi in my Dantin. That's when the qi starts to thicken, it starts to condense more. That's when the orbit really becomes like this tangible. Like I was doing it the other day, and it felt like this bubble, like under. This is gonna be weird, but there's this movie in the early 2000s, I think, is The Mummy, right, with Brendan Fraser, and there's like the scarab beetles. This might sound horrifying. I'm sorry, but it's like they like crawl on people's skin, and you see them like that's what it felt like. It was like this thing under my skin is like this bubbling, a very physical feeling, like this bubble moving like between my skin and the deeper tissue through the orbit. So, anyways, Blake Tove says, have been doing Dispenza Bonda's breath. Dispenza Bonda's breath. I'm guessing you're talking about Dr. Joe Dispenza, like a Bonda breathing practice, pranayama. And my solar plexus always spasms when I relax during meditation now. Is this energy moving or a nerve messed up? It's difficult to say, I'm not sure what the bondas are. If you use too much, you have to be careful with some of these, like, if, you don't want to use too much force, really, like forcing a lot of these. Some of the yogic practices are very forceful. It's like they're just, the ultimate goal. It's very goal oriented on like the end result, like blast the energy, get out of the body, instead of like caring for the, the balance and well-being of the physical body. That's why I transitioned into more body-centric practice. But I don't know exactly what the practice you're talking about, so I can't, I can only speculate. It could be something weird happening in your diaphragm. Could be the energy center opening up. It could be a lot of things. It's difficult to say. Just have to pay attention to what happens over time. And just notice if you develop like tightness and constriction in this area, because that could be kind of a warning sign. Zeke the Geek says, if someone really devoted 4 hours a day to your program, is it possible that it could last longer within a month? Definitely. I mean, I have, yes, if you practice hard, you will see results very quickly. But I mean, I have guys, I got a message from a guy the other day who he went through my ejaculation control guide, which is the free course I'm offering, my ejaculation control course. And he said with that, he went from lasting, like a few minutes to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like just that alone was enough for him to last longer. So it's going to vary based on what's kind of holding you at where you are right now. If you have really strong tension patterns, really strong kind of like anxieties around sex, how identified you are with your sexual habits and things like that. There's a lot of factors to it. But in general, yes, with practice, you're going to see results very quickly. A large portion of men who go through the course, experience significant endurance improvements by the end of the course. Some of them even start having the non-ejaculatory orgasms by the end of the course, but not everyone. For some, it takes longer. But in general, yes, the more committed you are to training, the more that you will see good results. SK says, joints all over my body have been cracking lately. Any advice, any kind of lubricant or supplement for this you recommend? I mean, you mean cracking like, just like adjustment pops, or just like, you move your shoulders like as far as lubricating the joints, getting lots of healthy fats. Collagen is a really good one. When I was vegetarian, my joints were not in good shape, and adding some like animal products really helped with my joints. Fish oil, MSM, sulfur, these things are good. Water break. All right, where are we at? Seek the Geek. I think it's okay to say love you to a brother from another mother. Hey, much love to you. Much love to everyone. Thank you guys for showing up, for being here, for having an interest in this, and doing the work. Chosen One says, have you ever done psychedelics on a super long streak, and how did it enhance the experience? I feel like it would be the ultimate state to manifest from, even if it burns out your adrenals, worth it. How should I answer this? Yeah, last time I did psychedelics, I was on, I don't know, it's probably like a month or something like that. I don't know if that's considered a long streak for, it's kind of like an average period for me now, because when I go beyond that, I actually don't feel that much more. It changes as as you do years of semen retention and you have a really strong practice. It's not always like the longer you go, the more benefits you get. It's, for me, it strong benefits 1 week, and then it kind of like tails off around 6 weeks. That's usually why I choose to ejaculate cyclically, right? But having said that, psychedelics, I can't say I got much positivity from them the last times I did them. It was just a lot of really weird shit. There's the astral. I mean, I should say first of all that I'm an in-depth. I'm a strong meditator, practitioner, so like I can get to some of these states without drugs. That's why I started practicing internal arts, is because I wanted to be able to do it without the kind of chaotic up and down that taking these things can, often create. And so the last time I did them, it's like it was I didn't even take that high of a dose. I had some, psilocybin mushrooms, just 2 or 3 like a couple grams, and I was in another dimension. I was with this group of friends, and I felt like we were out in the woods, and I was like, if I walk off by myself, like I'm going to leave this dimension completely. I will never see these guys again. I'll never see my old life again. I'll completely forget who I am, and like I have to stay around. It was weird. There wasn't a whole lot pleasant about it, I would say. It's just, again, the astral field of the planet right now is very interesting. It's kind of what you tune into when you take these things, is you're tapping more into like the astral field. And there's a lot of weird stuff there, I would say. So I don't know. I prefer not to do these things anymore personally. As far as manifesting, I don't know. It for me, it just brought a lot of really, really weird stuff that I didn't really benefit from. That's why I don't do these things anymore. So I don't know. I don't know how much of an answer is that. Moonbase says, "Thank you. That's great perspective change. I kept viewing the microcosmic orbit as some tall task. The best experience I had so far was being cold at work, so I clasped my hands together and felt warm pulse from my core." Yeah. So I mean, the microcosmic orbit. There's different levels of it. I think is really the thing. Is like, and the first level anyone can work with. Like, you just move your mind through the orbit, and you're going to affect some chi flow. But as you build more chi, as you condense more chi, as you get this cooking process happening in your Dantin, which is what Ne Dan is all about, Taoist internal alchemy, it changes the quality of what's flowing through orbit. And so that's really what becomes more advanced, is the types of energy running through your orbit. Felix Falcon says, "What kind of advice would you give a teenage son about semen retention?" It's a good question. If I had a son and he was coming of age, what would I teach him about semen retention? I wouldn't say, definitely not like, "Son, you must practice semen retention." I mean, especially the teenage. The thing is teenagers, they don't necessarily need to practice semen retention inherently. Like they don't need to go like a month at a time without ejaculating. But I think it's important for them to understand. Obviously for them, also if they're ejaculating several times a day, yes, it's going to deplete them. So it would, rather than like, you must practice semen retention. It's more about, I think, just sharing more a conscious approach to sexuality, what it means, what sexuality really is, and how porn kind of distorts it for us, and what sexual energy really represents, how it's this creative energy and this healing potential, and that when you get addicted to this ejaculatory type of orgasm, it actually limits your sexual experience, makes you very goal oriented during sex, and actually limits the amount of pleasure you experience, right? So, just make them see the bigger picture of it, and allow them to make the choices they choose, I guess, because we can't really, you know, we can only empower, but if you force a teenager to do something, they're going to do the opposite. At least that's how I was. Seeker says, "Reading Taoist Secrets of Love at the moment. These exercises seem extremely complicated. Is there a more simple approach? What is the best book or course to work on energy cultivation and sexual mastery?" I felt that way when I read that book too, but I mean, they're actually fairly simple, right? It's just a lot of steps and things like that. Um, it's kind of hard to learn this stuff from books, though. I found. Of course, I have to say, as far as books or courses, I have to recommend my own course, because this is really why I created it. Was because I spent years and years trying to learn this stuff, hearing different information. Some things worked, some things didn't, and then finally understanding the very, very practical methods, which is that you need to do the foundational practices before you do the sexual practices, and that makes it really easy, right? So, and that's what I go into depth in my course, Multi-Orgasmic Man, and that's all you really need. But having said that, yeah, I think that's, and I share. I made a YouTube video on my top 5 books on sexual kung fu practices, which is one of the fairly recent videos. So check those out. Juan Diaz says, I recommend Gnostic Varojli Mudra. Not sure how to say that, but more intense with retention. Yeah, if it works for you, it's great. You know, to be careful with some of the like the yogic locking, like there's some of the tantric techniques where you go to the point of no return and you lock the pelvic floor. It's basically like, you know, similar like $1 million point stuff. You have to be careful with some of those things because you're like forcefully holding back in fluid and there's a lot of force and it can create pelvic floor issues. You know, kind of what I'm talking about a lot in today is some of these squeezing the pelvic floor actually can create problems, right, in your energy flow. Liam says, what effect does bad posture, slouching have on chi energy and its movement? If someone is always bent at the neck and leaning forward, does that create a block in the spine, interfere with chakras? Well, overall, you know, bad posture, bad alignment, it can, yeah, negatively affect your energy flow. It may, you know, create blockages, stagnant areas. So you definitely want to, you know, work with proper posture, correcting your posture. That's why, you know, yoga asanas are great. Also the Qigong, the Zhuang practice, which aligns your spine, or at least if you do it properly, you align your spine and really opens things up. SK says, your hair is incredibly healthy and thick looking. Do you think your practice has anything to do with it? Yeah, I mean, you know, my practice branches into all aspects of my life. You know, it's not just, I don't think it's just because I'm practicing Qigong, just because I practice seam retention, or, you know, it's because I eat healthy. I avoid stress in my life. I live a healthy lifestyle. I spend time in nature. I get sun on my skin. You know, it's a lot of things. It's my whole lifestyle, I would say. You know, it's not one single thing. That's what sexual kung fu is really about, is this holistic lifestyle. It's all these things together. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm getting some sun on me. Speaking of the sun. All right. All right. I'm going to answer just a few more questions. Okay, well, Holy Man 462 says, what's the connection between semen retention and weight loss and muscle mass? If there is, you know, basically, I would say the connection, a potential connection, is the effect on your hormones, your energy levels. If you're constantly ejaculating, often your testosterone is low. Your estrogen levels might be a bit higher. You know, uh, uh, prolactin secreted after ejaculating, which lowers your testosterone. So maybe it's a bit harder to put on muscle and things like that. Um, so it makes sense that practicing, for me personally, when I started practicing semen retention, I just felt more driven. And that one of the things I chose to do with my energy was just get into weightlifting and, you know, build my muscles and things like that. And it's not like you start practicing semen retention, all of a sudden you're growing muscles and losing fat. I don't think it's that simple. It, I think what it really does is maximize your hormones and your energy, which supports, you know, your exercise routine and your nutrition, which is important for those things as well, right? Chosen One says, how often do you study psychology and the unconscious? Do you feel as a retainer who aspires to elevate consciousness that a solid understanding of psychology is necessary? What sources have you used? I mean, you know, it's good to understand the mind and consciousness and all these things. I have never gotten too deep into like more Western psychology stuff. I There's a lot of, you know, in Taoist practice, a lot of it is how our various aspects of our, well, you could say almost our soul, and these different archetypal energies that we have. You know, the Taoist system is all about the 5 elements. There's a practice called fusion of the 5 elements where you learn to connect with your internal organs, which are aspects of your shen, right? Your these sort of spiritual qualities, these almost different entities, we could say, these different archetypal vibrational expressions of life force that are in our body, that are creating these different desires, different emotions, and things like that. And so you learn to work with these things and understand, like, you know, why we have certain issues we have. Why do we have the traumas that we have? Why do we have the certain mannerisms and preferences and things? You know, what did we inherit from our parents? What was conditioned into us from society? What's our original condition? Like, what would we be without any of this external conditioning? There's a lot of things to look into here. So, I don't know. For me, it's been a lot of more kind of Eastern thought as far as a lot of the stuff, but there's some Western psychology information I found helpful too. But in the end, this stuff is only theoretical information, right? And it's like if you don't have a practice to integrate and like develop yourself, then it's just information that weighs down your mind. You're not gonna be able to do much with it, right? It's like one of my teachers, Michael Wynn. I was kind of reviewing one of his courses recently. And he says that he had a friend or a student who was a psychologist, like more or psychiatrist, more formal Western psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. And she learned, his system. She started teaching her clients the six healing sounds, and that was actually having like, much greater efficiency than traditional talk therapy and things like that. So it's interesting. It's like you don't necessarily need to know how everything works. You just need to know a tool to manage it. It's like when you manage your internal energy, your consciousness becomes balanced. Your mind becomes balanced because our mind is a product of our bodies in some way, or the mind creates the body. The body is our mind and our body are one in a lot of ways. So that's really the deeper you go into your body, the deeper you're actually going into your mind. It's where you're holding tension, where you're holding blockages, and how you're stuck in certain ways. That's been my greatest teaching, I would say. SK says, any techniques for having more control over your dream time? Yeah, as far as like lucid dreaming, remembering dreams. First of all, you need to get enough sleep because you get to your deepest REM sleep later in the night. Like I don't usually experience super vivid dreams unless I get a solid, at least 7 hours of sleep, I would say. And those last REM periods will be the most vivid dreams. That's when it's the most strategic to work with your dreams. You're going to do lucid dreaming or whatever. So what I would do when I was really working with lucid dreaming was I would set an alarm to wake me up after 5, 6 hours of sleeping. I would stay awake for about 20 minutes, just kind of preparing myself to go back into the sleep state fully conscious. And then you go into it, become lucid, do whatever you're going to do. It's pretty cool. All right, I'm gonna answer one more question, guys. Then I'm gonna jump off here. Wow, we're an hour and a half in. Time flies. Dan Vito says, hey, Johnathan, I kind of lost my libido through NoFap. Do you have an advice to get this sexual vitality back? Greetings from the Netherlands. Love your videos. Thank you. Yes, so this unfortunately is not uncommon, right? Guys do NoFap, and this is kind of the tendency. This is the human tendency of going from one extreme to the other. And so a lot of men in NoFap, it's like, okay, I understand that jerking off to porn every day has been depleting me. It's been wrecking my, mental, emotional body, physical body. And so now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm never going to watch porn, which no, that's fine, but I'm never going to masturbate, never going to touch my penis again. I'm just going to completely suppress any sexual desire, go to the opposite spectrum, right? And then after maybe months of that, the tendency is to go back to the extreme opposite. It's like, well, now I'm going to binge watch porn because I've been suppressing the sexual energy till it built up and it's controlling me because I never actually found a way to transform it. I never found a way to actually work with it, right? This is the tendency. Or again, yeah, my libido is gone because it's a use it or lose it situation. I'm not exercising my genitals. My body's like, well, we don't need those anymore. Let's just shut down the hormone supply. So sexual kung fu exercises, I actually don't recommend for most men to go more than I would say 2-3 months at maximum without ejaculating. If you go more than that, you're probably going to experience this less in libido. That's what I personally found. That's why I do it ejaculate cyclically during sex now, 4 to 6 weeks. And I have the highest benefits doing that. Yeah, this was a hard thing for me in the beginning because my ego wanted to be like, well, I need to go longer because I need to tell everyone I went years without ejaculating because I'll be so cool. It's just ego. It's just ego trip, so find the right cycle, ejaculation cycle for yourself. That's important. Again, for a lot of guys, it may be a month, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. If you're really depleted, it could be 2 or 3 months. But the most important thing is you start to integrate sexuality back into your life. You start to use sexual stimulation as a way to awaken your genitals, awaken that sexual energy. Then you draw it through your body. You store the energy. This will keep your endocrine system in action. It's really a use or lose it situation, right? So check out my tantric masturbation video. Check out my sexual kung fu exercises playlist here on YouTube, and I think you'll find a lot of helpful resources. And rebuild the kidney energy as well. That's important. Do Qigong, all these things. Hey, thanks, Liam. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to wrap this up now. And again, I'm teaching the Awakening the Sexual Center masterclass tomorrow. There's a link in the description. And have a good weekend, guys. Take care.